Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the eTrailer trailer hitch receiver on a 2023 Chevy Equinox. Now this is what your hitch is going to look like when it's installed, and the great part is it's a hidden cross tube, meaning that most of the structural portion of the hitch is hidden, so you won't see it. All that's going to be hanging down is going to be the receiver opening, so the business end of it. So you get all the usability with a nice clean look. And this one, being a 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening, is one of the best sizes as far as picking up accessories. So you can get plenty of different bike racks, cargo carriers, ball mounts, whatever it may be in that 2-inch configuration. Now, when you are loading those accessories or ball mounts in place, you are going to need a 5/8 pin and clip to keep those in, as the hitch does not come with one. Now, a lot of times when you pick up your accessories, they'll have them included with them, but if you want to pick up a locking version, we have plenty of options available here at eTrailer, and that's really nice to load your accessories up, lock it in place, and know that they're not going to walk away in the hands of someone else. Safety chain loops are nice and easily accessible, so when pulling a trailer you can hook up that standard S hook or even a larger clevis style with ease. Now, speaking of towing, this is rated fairly decently with a gross trailer weight rating of 4,500 pounds. You also have a tongue weight rating of 675. Now, it can be used with a weight distribution hitch, but those numbers are going to stay the same, and you do want to check your vehicle's owner's manual before hooking up to that weight and compare that with the numbers of the hitch. Take the lower of those two so you stay safe. Now, some accessories will be folding, and you want to make sure that you have clearance so it doesn't make contact with your fascia. So from the center of the hitch pin out to the furthest point of the rear fascia, we're looking at about 5 inches. That's also important for your ball mounts to make sure that you have clearance to be able to hook that trailer up. Also, ground clearance is going to be important to determine if you need a rise or a drop, and this one comes in at 11 inches. So that way you can measure the couple of your trailer and get a ball mount that's going to work with that, but also with your cargo carriers or bike racks or accessories that you may load on. Being 11 inches, it's a decent amount of ground clearance, but you definitely want to keep in mind when you're going up an incline with those loaded, this is going to want to tilt towards the ground. So just keep that in mind when driving. That way you're not damaging your accessories. Now, as far as installation goes, this is a pretty easy one to do. You can definitely do it in your driveway or garage. You are going to have to lower the muffler down and just remove a little bits of hardware here and there, but other than that, you're going to fish wire some hardware in. Now, you will have to modify just one of the access holes to feed the hardware up, but it's a small amount, so as long as you have a cutting tool, you should be able to get that knocked out pretty easily. So follow along with the video, and that way you can get your hitch installed. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath our rear fascia here, and there's going to be 2 T15 Torx bits that attach to a bracket, and that's going to allow us to open up our bumper a little bit more to get our exhaust to drop down. So go ahead with your T15 and take these 2 off. And throughout the installation there is going to be some more hardware that we're going to be taking off, so just make sure you have a nice organized spot for your hardware. It's going to make reinstallation a lot easier. Next, we're going to need to lower down our exhaust isolator bracket. So if you look underneath, you're going to see the 2 studs going through here, and it's going to be a 15mm socket to get that. Now, I recommend having a swivel head ratchet. It's going to make it a little bit easier. So just kind of reach up there. You'll feel both of them, and we'll get those loosened up and taken out. Now, you should also be able to get a ratcheting wrench in here. You can kind of have this nice open pocket to be able to gain access. So whatever works best, just go ahead and get these 2 taken out and repeat that on the other side. Now, we should be able to remove our brackets here. It's got this little tab that kind of slides in, and it looks like my exhaust isolator is been separated here from the factory. So yours, you may just need to move out. But the main thing is we're going to need to get our exhaust here to kind of lower down to give us space. So you can go ahead and take these out. Now, with those brackets off, if you are struggling with it, anytime you're doing any isolator exhaust work, those rubber hangers can get a little bit kind of built up with stuff, and they can get a little bit tricky to pop off. So you can use a soapy water solution or a penetrating oil, and that's just going to kind of help lubricate those off. And we're going to be doing that here on our hanger that we have in the middle of our cross member. So this is going to allow this to drop down, but we do need to support our exhaust. We don't want this just bending downstream. So if you're doing this in your garage or your driveway, just have a block of wood or something that it's not just going to free hang. Since I'm on a lift here, I'm going to be using a cam buckle strap to just kind of create a cradle here. And this isolator, as I mentioned before, I'm just going to put a little bit of penetrating oil. And you can use, if you have a pry bar, that's definitely the most preferred method, but a flathead's going to work kind of the same. So just kind of get a point of leverage and then just kind of work this back, and until you get this to pop off. Should be pretty easy here. So with that isolator off, you can see our exhaust is kind of hanging. I'm just going to kind of get our cradle a little bit tighter here just to support it. And this is going to give us that clearance to be able to get that hitch up in place. Now this is when taking those T15 Torx bits comes into play. This is going to allow us to kind of peel back our fascia enough to get our hangers here past the plastic, and that way we can get our hitch to slide up in between them and bolt up to our frame. Now we are going to be doing some drilling, and this is the hole that we're going to pass our hardware down, and eventually we're going to have our carriage bolt with our spacer block going through the holes in the frame. But in order to get those in place, we do have to just widen it out. You can see our carriage bolt is not going to fit. Now, there's a few different options as far as enlarging this. I think the best method and probably most common tool that people have is going to be a Dremel. And what I do is I just kind of run the wheel straight across, and that should allow this portion of our carriage bolt to slip through, as well as our spacer block. So it really doesn't need a whole heck of a lot of widening out here. So I'll cut ours and I'll show you how it looks. Now, a few other options. You can use a burr bit that attaches to a drill, and you can kind of just grind that out until it's large enough. You can also use the step bit and just enlarge the entire hole. Now, don't worry too much. As long as you can get everything passed through, that's what you're looking for. But that spacer block is going to cover that whole widened area, so no worries there. Now, since you're going to be drilling, you're going to have some metal. Make sure you have safety glasses on when doing this. Now, if you have any burrs, you can go through with a file and just kind of knock those down. And then once you're done with that, make sure you go back with a little bit of spray paint. Since we've created raw metal, we don't want to make sure that our hitch is going to be sandwiched against. Water's going to collect there. We don't want that to turn to rust. So I'm going to just put a little bit of clear coat here. So just coat that raw edge. You can use really any color spray paint that you may have. But again, that's just going to protect that metal. So now all we need to do is repeat that same process on the other side. Now with our access hole drilled out, we're going to go ahead and get our hardware in place. Now there's going to be 3 sets on each side that we're going to be using. It's going to be exactly the same. We're going to start here on the furthest hole. So in this circle here, we're going to feed the coiled end in here. Now if you need to, put a little bend, and that way we can feed this towards our access hole. And just have your finger ready here, and we should be able to catch that coiled end and pull it through. May take a little bit of patience here, but grab hold of that. And if you need to make it a little bit easier, you can always put a little bit more of a bend here, and that way it's going to aim towards that access hole. So now at this point, go ahead, take your spacer block. You can feed that up in the frame rail. And then our carriage bolt here, we're going to feed this in as well. Now you may need to go at an angle as it might be tight here. So if that's the case, you can also feed it backwards. The main thing is just getting this in the frame rail. And then what we'll do is just pull our fish wire until we get that to drop in. And then we're just going to repeat the same for this hole as well as this hole, and then do the same on the other side of the vehicle. Now once all your hardware is in place, keep those fish wires on the bolt until we raise our hitch up. It's going to keep that from going up into the frame rail, and if it does, we can just simply pull this back down. So until we have the hitch up, you're going to want to leave those on. Now something I've noticed here on our passenger side, we do have this wiring harness that's in the frame. It may or may not be in the way, but we don't want to have to worry about that as we're raising the hitch up and have it suspended. So just go ahead, you can pop that off, you can use a flathead, and that way we can move this out of the way for now. So now at this point, I have John helping me here, and that way we can support our hitch. We're going to want to slide this up over the muffler. You may do one side at a time, and once you kind of get that past in the plastic, you can kind of slide this over, making the other one a little bit easier. And And once we kind of get this aligned with the frame, you're going to want to take the fish wire that's going to the corresponding spot and feed those through. And also, to make it a little bit easier, once you have it passed through, you can put a bend on the end, and that way it kind of holds it in place. It's not going to pull back out. So go ahead and do that for all of the holes. And then once we're happy with those passed through, we'll have get your flange nut ready, have that handy, because as we raise this up, we're just going to try to get one started on each side. So this is when those fish wires really help. You can kind of pull these through. Sometimes it's going to be tight, but the main thing I'm looking for here is to get one of the flange nuts started, and it's going to make it a lot easier to get the rest of the hardware on. So your fish wire, you can uncoil it, or you can pull it. Just kind of be careful. Sometimes they can snap on you. And then best thing you can do here is if you can put your finger to kind of hold this in place to get a few threads started. That way you're not pushing it up, trying to tighten it. That's going to help. You can also kind of use the hitch to kind of pull against it to put tension. But either way, as long as we get one started on each side, we'll be good. Now, once you have all your hardware hand tightened in place, you can go ahead and snug it down using a 3/4 inch socket. Now, using a torque wrench is going to make sure that it's going to be tight enough for the lifespan of the hitch to stay on there, but also not too tight, causing stress on the threads. Now, we have these available here at eTrailer to buy, but you can also go to an auto parts store and generally rent these for free. And the torque setting is going to be found in the instruction manual. So go through and just tighten down all your hardware to that torque setting. And with everything torqued down properly, we're ready to get our exhaust put back. So get your isolator put back in place, as well as your brackets and those bolts. And then we'll just get our T15 Torx bits back in on the bottom side of our fascia. And that's going to do it for the installation of the hitch on the Equinox. And that was a look and installation of the eTrailer trailer hitch receiver on a 2023 Chevy Equinox.